Hello there, welcome back to Strife's Talking Points. Today I'm kind of sitting here a little dead after lunch, and I want to cover something. Uh, Seems to be a very big talking point, as you can clearly see on the screen here. Protect safe, legal abortion. Supreme Court sidesteps abortion questions in ruling on Indiana law. Uh, I've been kind of doing research on this the last couple days, just trying to figure it out. Clarence Thomas is getting hit for saying that birth control and abortion are eugenics, tool of modern day eugenics, and then of course Vanity Fair says Nazi science because they have to attack anyone to the right of them, and if you're referring to, the fact that your population isn't growing due to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of abortions and birth control, really cutting the population back. That's what Clarence Thomas is referring to, and they're calling it Nazi science. Anyway, so the Supreme Court gets this Indiana law in front of them, and they basically just sidestep the whole thing. In an apparent compromise in a case from Indiana, the justices turned down an appeal that asked the court to reinstate a law banning abortion sought solely because of the sex or disability of a fetus. But the court upheld part of the same law requiring abortion providers to bury or cremate fetal remains. So the Supreme Court just didn't handle any part of the law except for how you handle the remains, and they moved on. The case Box V versus Planned Parenthood in Indiana and Kentucky have been closely watched because it would give the Supreme Court's first chance to consider the constitutionality of a state law restricting abortion since Brett Kavanaugh replaced Justice Kennedy last year. Now, as they state here, Justice Kennedy had been a cautious supporter of abortion rights, while Justice Kavanaugh's limited record on the subject as an appeals judge seemed to suggest some kind of skepticism. So, they have him, Justice Kavanaugh, talking that he did not see any reason to overturn Roe versus Wade because there had already been precedents in that field, and he was just going to kind of follow that. But you've got to try and link it that Kavanaugh will do this because this is essentially our current state of media with fear mongering. That's from the New York Times. I'm going to more or less skip the rest of the article, as everything you need to know about it's right here in this first bracket. That's it. They turned down an appeal that asked the court to reinstate the law banning abortions because of sex or disability of a fetus, and they upheld a law saying how you handle the remains. Cut and dry. Nothing else about it needs to be really known. And for the love of all that's holy, this always cracks me up. Handmaid's Tale protester stands outside the Alabama State House after the state passed the most restrictive abortion legislation in the country. These people that dress up as Handmaid's Tale from the fictional show about an authoritarian government or authoritarian religious government is just insane. Literally, you could just stand there wearing a burqa or any other type of prescribed religious dress, and it would have a real effect. That's it. That's stupid that they go fictional when there's 100 real things they could wear that people wear every day to symbolize some type of religious, not even religious oppression, it would be religious dress. And here we go. Here is this opinion piece from, I forgot already, Politico. Politico leans very far left. They've made it a point to only fact check one side, and if they do happen to be forced to fact check Democrats, they just say mostly true, even though the exact same quote from another person would be either false or mostly false. Republicans wanted to weaponize abortion rights against vulnerable Democrats in 2020, but a wave of strict bans across the country has upended their strategy, leaving them scattered and mostly mute. That is very much an opinion, but they are trying to make it sound like that's very true. Before Alabama passed its law, Republicans had made clear they would make abortion a central issue in the next election. They had homed in on a host of state laws expanding access to abortion, seizing specifically on New York bill that Republicans inaccurately claimed would legalize infanticide. Now, the infanticide claim was actually stated by, I believe it was the governor of New York, in a radio interview where he said basically they would be able to decide if the baby should be killed after birth. They actually seized on something he said. Whether or not that was correct, he misspoke. It's a real thing he said. It was really kind of bad to see. The party hopes that a relentless anti-abortion message coupled with attempts to tag Democrats as socialist, I believe they're actually tagging themselves as socialists now, could help them regain the House majority. This year alone, House Republicans had tried 50 times to force a vote on born alive legislation which mandates medical care for babies who survived attempted abortions. In an attempt to corner Democrats. Oh my God, that is nuts. Is that really a thing? If a baby is born, that alive, it should be given... If a baby is aborted and it comes out alive, that it isn't given medical care? Oh, that's... sorry, that's just insane to me. But Republicans have gone mostly quiet since Alabama's governor signed a bill into law that all but bans of abortion, even in cases of rape or incest. Less than 1% fall into this category. There's something in our minds that we must focus on these extreme and very limited cases, and people just want to talk about the most extreme cases. You don't discuss the fact in biology that humans have 12 fingers. You discuss the fact that humans have 10 fingers, some 9, some 8, but generally the only thing you discuss and you pass laws based on 10-fingered humans. Maybe somewhere out there, a man with 9 or 11 fingers, man, woman, person, gets left out of glove buying, but that is just reality. You focus on the majority, the greatest group possible. So if 99% of people have it for personal reasons, not rape or incest, focus on the personal reasons. And these Republicans are not responding to Politico because over time Politico is slowly coming out that it is very much a left-leaning thing, and you can go through their fact-checking stuff and actually see quotes where you'll find the same quote attributed to two different people, or almost the exact same quote. The Republican gets a lie or a mostly false, where the Democrat will get a true. CNN, one of the worst networks. I actually have CNN blocked from my news feed because I just don't trust them anymore. However, I went looking for this specific stuff, so I found one of their stories. Alabama's anti-abortion law isn't alone. Here are all the states pushing to restrict access. Now, what I always find funny is to a pro-choice person, it's restricting access. To a pro-life person, it's stopping murder. This is the difficulty in the argument. One side sees it as a basic right, one side sees it as murder. So it's very difficult to find common ground on that fact. Morally, personally, however, a lot of people can find ground. So here are the states. Alabama already has theirs. You see the heartbeat laws coming. Mississippi, Ohio, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas, Utah, Iowa. States working on it. Indiana, South Carolina, West Virginia, Florida, Texas. Although Texas failed. Yeah, says it right there. Texas heartbeat bill formally died last week. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 states are all pushing to shut it down. Granted, other than Florida and Texas, these are small states, not really a huge voting bloc. However, you're starting to see that movement. People are really starting to want to. Pro-choice, pro-life is always been a very dramatic thing, and you're seeing more states move to kind of protect children. And then you see New York, Vermont, Maine push to add abortion protections. Now, here's the thing. If you live in a state, you can move from the state to be in a state which is more aligned with your values. That's kind of the whole purpose of states, big states, small states, that you can move around. Now, the law passed 46th anniversary of Roe versus Wade. This is just New York's law. And this is the thing you always hear. Roe versus Wade protect safe legal abortion. You'll see it referred to as a constitutional right to have an abortion. And I've never really understood that, so I wanted to go through and see what it actually says. Roe versus Wade. Here's the important part. 14th Amendment provides a fundamental right to privacy that protects a pregnant woman's liberty to choose whether or not to have an abortion. However, it ruled the right is not absolute and must be balanced against the government's interest in protecting women's health and protecting prenatal life. So, it's not an absolute right whether or not to have an abortion, because the court also needs to protect prenatal life. And as you go through this, you see the different challenges. In 1992, the Supreme Court revisited and modified its legal rulings in Roe versus Wade in the case of Planned Parenthood versus Casey. In Casey, the court ruled holding a woman's right to abort a non-viable fetus is constitutionally protected, but abandoned Roe's trimester framework in favor of a standard based on fetal viability. So keep that in mind, fetal viability. And now, so the court isn't protecting the right to abort the child. They're protecting a woman's right to privacy on whether or not she does this. That's the big thing. And what you're seeing now, right to privacy here, with historical survey as background, the court introduced the concept of a constitutional right to privacy that was initiated in earlier cases involving parent control over childbearing. Meyer versus Nebraska, Pierce versus Society, you can look those up. This is, of course, Wikipedia. And reproductive autonomy. Then, with virtually no further explanation of the privacy value, no explanation, the court ruled that regardless exactly of which provisions were involved, the U.S. Constitution guarantees liberty covered under right to privacy that generally protected a woman's decision whether or not to have a pregnancy. Now, over time, you're going to see here, this comes on much later, the court acknowledges that states who had interests that were sufficiently compelling to permit some limitations on their right to choose to have an abortion. First, their interest in protecting the mother's health, and second, protecting the life of the fetus. The court rejected Texas's argument that total bans on abortion were justifiable because life begins at the moment of conception. Now, I think this is where Alabama is going to have a big pushback because the court has already rejected a total ban because of the life begins at conception argument. The court found there was no indication that the Constitution's use of the word person was meant to include fetuses, so it rejected Texas's argument that a fetus should be considered a person with a legal and constitutional right to life. it noted that there was still great disagreement over when an unborn fetus becomes a person. So, that should be kind of the full discussion right there. I believe this is what you're seeing play out now, is the disagreement over an unborn fetus becomes a person. I believe this is what's going to be challenged next. And no, I do not believe that the total ban from Alabama will hold, strictly because it's already been rejected by the Supreme Court once, and I fully expect that it would be rejected again. However, some of these heartbeat bills that you're seeing go around, Mississippi, Ohio, Georgia, Missouri, Kentucky's got it, but it's been stopped. Arkansas is 18 weeks. Utah, Iowa, all these places. I would expect the heartbeat laws to probably be challenged by the Supreme Court after they strike down Alabama. Just like I said, because of prior precedent. However, if viability and aforementioned personhood can be described as having a heartbeat, and I believe now after 20 weeks, which is midway into the second trimester, if a child could be considered viable, then that would be considered a human life under my limited understanding of the Supreme Court ruling, and you would start to see a great pushback, which generally think, just kind of wrapping my head around it, I would assume you would see more of these heartbeat laws pushed out probably from 6 weeks towards 12, meaning at the end of the first trimester, you would then be prescribed a human, and actually a person, under that push from the original rulings. And like I said, they just decided that this right to privacy included abortion through the case. And of course, there's always time for new legal interpretation, but even though you see a lot of people on the left keep talking about Justice Kavanaugh is this anti-abortion, they're painting him in a picture that I don't think fits him. I do believe that he will rule on the existing precedents and use them as continuation of precedents. He will keep moving the way it's been going. However, the real challenge will come when they begin to do the viability argument, and when does the baby, the growing developing child become a person? If it moves to viability, then you would see that legal scientific precedents move to 22 weeks. If they move it up from there as technology gets better, you could see that fall very dramatically. What are your comments? What are your thoughts? What do you think? Generally my videos give between 10 to 12 views. I just like seeing some comments every now and again, a message here or there. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day. And I don't see any end to this. However, I really do want to see what the Supreme Court does with it when it actually gets there. Thank you. Have a great day.